welcome. So glad to see you here in this beautiful space on this rainy Saturday morning with so many other wonderful things that you could be doing. I'm grateful that you made the choice to be here. My name is Sarah Robinson, and I serve as Advocacy Manager for Earth Ministry Washington Interfaith Power and Light. I am glad to welcome you as we launch our Cast Your Vote Washington campaign, which brings us, which brings us together today to learn, reflect, and to act. Our work links to a call to faith, conscience, and meaningful engagement in complex multi-faith communities and among interrelated ecosystems. At Earth Ministry Washington Interfaith Power and Light, our organization centers around multi-faith community, coalition partnerships, and faith-rooted and conscience-led advocacy. Advocacy's roots are nourished by justice. We focus on environmental justice, which links to the deep roots of justice building. This campaign deepens our commitments through the work of voter engagement, enabling community capacity toward getting out the vote and facilitating understanding of the responsibility we hold to protect our laws to safeguard a healthy environment for us, all living beings and those who will come after us. The rich metaphor of trees and forests helps us to ground the campaign in the evergreen state. So many of us have experienced awe and wonder, great conversations, and good hiking under a canopy of western red cedars, ponderosa pine, and Pacific yew, and other wonderful trees in this region. These places invite a sense of being part of this precious living world. Trees are phenomenal living beings that provide amazing metaphors for the work ahead in advocacy this year. Forests play an important role in slowing rainwater, reducing flood and landslide risk. Tree roots filter water, improving water quality across its slow descent across forested watersheds. As you may have read in the Winter Earth Letter, trees bring water through their roots to their greening leaves through a process not unlike our heartbeats. Circulating soil nutrients. By shading streams, trees serve our aquatic companions, like freshwater fish and migrating salmon, so crucial to this part of the world, Northwest Native nations, and so many of us who participate in river and lake recreation. With the metaphor of trees, we lean into our experience and our understanding, and this campaign invites a sense of collaborative potential. If we show up, we find we are far from alone. We can be a forest, and through our work together, we can plant a forest. Thank you. All right, the plan for today, we will begin with a welcome from our generous hosts here at UCUCC's Sacred Earth Matters group. We'll honor tribal communities with our land acknowledgement and offer the missions for both Earth Ministry Washington Interfaith Power and Light and Faith Action Network, our campaign partner. We will share an opening prayer and invocation, and to understand campaign priorities, we will talk about what it means to tend soil, plant seeds, nourish growth, and plant a forest in the Cast Your Vote Washington campaign. To tend soil, I'll talk a bit about advocacy and environmental justice to protect our overburdened communities from harmful pollution and support a healthy transition to clean energy. To plant seeds, I'll talk a bit about our intentions with the campaign, our partners, and our inspiration, and some details on the ways our campaign connects with collaborators. To nourish growth, our Executive Director, A.C. Churchill, will return to say a few words about the importance of bringing your story into faithful, conscience-led advocacy. And to plant a forest, I will talk more about the resources in our toolkit, which will be growing over the next few months as well, which can empower each of us to share the urgent call to participate actively, faithfully, and with conscience in our election process. What a gift to live in a democracy. What a gift to share time together and feel rooted and nourish growth together. And then we will end with a set of poem prayers offered by both organizations, E.M. Weipel and FAN. So I welcome Mary Ellen Smith to offer our welcome from Sacred Earth Matters and University Congregational United Church of Christ, where we're grateful to be today.
Okay. Oh, yes, I'm on. All right. Okay, so the Sacred Earth Matters group here at this church started back in 2001. And two of the original members are here, Carol Nelson and myself. And there's one other that's part of the group that she's online today. And it has grown. We have done a ton of things in the church in terms of educational stuff about living simply and electric cars and all kinds of different subjects around climate change. And we're still plodding along 23 some years later. So I think that's a testament to persistence, if nothing else. I'm also here to give you some few instructions about things. The bathrooms, I always think that's the first thing folks need to know where it is. They're over in that corner. So if you go out that back door and turn right, you'll see the men's and the women's. The women's is kind of along the hallway, and the men have to go down a side hallway to get to their restroom. In the narthex, you'll find tables from Faith Action Network, as well as Sacred Earth Matters, and as well as Earth Ministry. And the Sacred Earth Matters group has an active advocacy list, and if you're not on that list, then this is your opportunity to sign up. Lon and his crew of 4 or 5 folks every year look at all of the state laws and bills that are before the legislature, and then we set up a group of priorities and decide what we're going to push. And then he sends out weekly emails to people saying, this is what you got to do this week. It's only 1 email a week, and you get a lot of information. So I think that's all I got to say. Okay? All right.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. And before I introduce you to us, to Earth Ministry, Washington Interfaith Power and Light, wanted to take just a minute to give an opportunity to our board chair, Reverend Laura Baumgartner, to come up and say a few words about the work that we are doing and our excitement in being with you today, and this work that we are looking forward to doing together.
Thanks, AC. I'll just say hi and welcome, and we're so glad that you're here, and the board is so supportive of all the work that the staff has been doing, and so excited to get to partner with all of you during this campaign season, and I can't wait to hear more. So thank you, AC.
Thank you much. My name is Reverend A.C. Churchill. I am the Executive Director at Earth Ministry, Washington Interfaith Power and Light. My pronouns are they, them, and I wanted to introduce you for those of you who may not know who we are. We are going into our 31st year of doing environmental justice work across the state. And you can see on the screen, maybe you can't see, we're already taking notes about increasing font size. But let me read for you that this is part of our mission and our vision, is to transform faith into action for the well-being of our communities and the environment. And we do this work in lots of different ways, but one of the key ways that we do this is in relationship. in relationship with communities like University Congregational UCC, with the Sacred Earth Matters team. We do this in relationship with partners like FAN, Faith Action Network, because we know that together we can create this world, a just and sustainable world, and we know that we can't do this by ourselves. And last year, so as part of our thanks and gratitude to UCUCC for hosting, we wanted to share with you all a couple of gifts. First, you will see up on the communion table a cedar sapling. And this is a gift from us to you all, to the Sacred Earth Matters team, as thanks and gratitude for planting seeds and beauty and life. And I don't know where you'll put it, but I'm excited to learn and hear the story of where the cedar tree will go. Secondly, you will see, or you see this communion plate, this paten. It is a celebration for the work that you all have done last year. We held our first inaugural, I guess that's what inaugural means. We held our inaugural Congregational Community Awards, where we wanted to recognize those who are doing good work. And so University Congregational United Church of Christ received the award, a commitment to helping green the community beyond congregational boundaries. And so this is our gift, another gift to you to use in your sacred spaces and in your sacred worship. We are honored to be here and glad to be doing this work with you. And one of the pieces that we also know as we honor is recognizing that we do this work as part of being part of the work of caring for the earth that has been done since time immemorial before we got here. So one of our priorities at Earth Ministry Washington IPL is to do a land acknowledgement as we start our work. So we want to acknowledge that we work within the unceded territories of Northwest Native Nations, that our office is on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present. We acknowledge that simply naming this is one way to resist erasure of indigenous histories, as well as to honor the tribes and the land itself. We recognize these words that are then put into action in many different ways, including the ways that we show up in advocacy, and that ways in which we use our financial resources, like paying real rent to the Duwamish tribe. So with those honorings and acknowledgements, want to turn over the mic to our co-coalition members, Faith Action Network, and Elizabeth is here to say hello for you from FAN.
Hi, friends. I know so many of you, I think all of you, actually, because I met a couple of you on the way in. So we are, I'm Elizabeth Dickinson. I serve as the partnership coordinator for the Faith Action Network. We're so delighted to work with Earth Ministry and the Washington Interfaith Power and Light every year to develop, we take the guidance of Earth Ministry in our priorities for climate justice and environmental justice. And particularly this summer, we're just thrilled to be working on the No on 2117 campaign with them. So I have a table in back if you are curious about FAN. We are a statewide multi-faith partnership striving for just, compassionate, and sustainable communities through courageous advocacy and public action. We have 168 faith community members, and I think many of us are represented as members of FAN. Also, thousands of individuals join. We try to ground ourselves in wisdom and spiritual traditions, lifting up values of equity and justice, belonging, interconnection, collaboration, and pluralism. We try to equip and empower faith communities to take action on advocacy, mostly in this state, but also on some federal legislation. And we also try to provide opportunities for us to be in solidarity with each other within our multi-faith community, both on the negative side when there's violence or harassment against any of our faith communities, but also doing justice together. So this summer, we're going to be, in addition to working on initiatives, we're going to be promoting civic engagement and election engagement. And on the table, we have pledges for your congregation to become a 100% voting congregation, which provides you opportunities. So thanks so much. So glad to see you all here. So we'd like to center ourselves in prayer, and there's a refrain: "Teach us and show us the way." Then that's for you all. So thanks so much. Let us pray the Chinook Blessing Litany that is written up in Earth Prayers. I do believe, but maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, that the Chinook still have not been federally recognized. But that was true a couple decades ago anyway. We call upon our planet home with its beautiful depths and soaring heights, its vitality and abundance of life, and together we ask that it teach us and show us the way. Teach us and show us the way. We call upon the waters that rim the earth, horizon to horizon, that flow in our rivers and streams, that fall upon our gardens and fields, and we ask that they teach us and show us the way.
We call upon the land which grows our food, the nurturing soil, the fertile fields, the abundant gardens and orchards, and we ask that they
teach us and show us the way. We call upon the forests, the great trees reaching strongly to the sky with earth in their roots and the heavens in their branches, the fir and the pine and the cedar, and we ask them to teach us and show us the way.
We call upon the creatures of the fields and forests and seas, our brothers and sisters and siblings, the wolves and deer, the eagle and dove, the great whales and dolphin, the beautiful orca and salmon who share our earth home. And we ask them to teach us and show us the way.
We call upon all those who have lived on this earth, our ancestors and our friends who dreamed the best for future generations, and upon whose lives are built. And with thanksgiving, we call upon them to teach us and show us the way.
And lastly, we call upon all that we hold most sacred, the presence and the power of the great spirit of love and truth, which flows through all the universe, to be with us and to teach us and
and show us the way. Amen.
Beautiful. Thank you. So, when planting a garden or a forest, it is important to know what you already have, what you bring that may give fertility to the soil. For the work of voter engagement, we bring a particularly nourishing type of advocacy centering environmental justice to serve communities and the environment. We bring gifts from meaningful traditions that encourage healing, justice, and transformation. Unique among advocacy partners, we bring more connected attention to the values of awe, wonder, hope, and lament, crucial aspects of being human and nourishing the work. We also cohere gifts for storytelling, which our policymakers can carry to further soils for planting. Thank you. The Environmental Protection Agency defines environmental justice as fair treatment and meaningful involvement in decision-making, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income. But did you know that religious people developed the definition and data to understand the need for environmental justice? Many of you probably do. The 1989 Toxic Wastes and Race study from the United Church of Christ provided a clear association of toxic exposures, yes, with lower income communities, but found that communities of color, regardless of income level, suffered higher toxic levels across their communities. In an age when we must face the facts of climate transformations, the work of voter engagement both serves environmental and climate justice, since a changing climate amplifies existing hardships and injustices, and we wish to strengthen resilience. Now that the soil has some healthy nutrients, we will turn to planting seeds. The work of voter engagement relates to faithful understandings of people and our participation among our relations, our responsibility as stewards, trustees, and our capacity to offer replenishment beyond simply our own interests and needs. Our state this year faces a crucial crossroads in climate policy, since the newly implemented Forward-Thinking Climate Commitment Act is at risk of repeal via the ballot initiative 2117. I will explain some of the history and benefits, as well as losses associated with this landmark policy and the risk of repeal. Seattle Times columnist John Talton compares the 2024 election with highly charged elections in 1860 and 1932. When he says the nation faced, quote, the most important elections in its history, facing similar issues, divisions, and questions which are playing out in Washington today, unquote. As people rooted in faith and conscience-led traditions at this transformative moment, we can remember the value of each living being and the sacredness of the land, the healing waters, and the fresh, restoring air. We protect these things as a sacred obligation, a responsibility to each other and to those who come after us. With these values, we seek for everyone eligible to have access to the electoral process, to safeguard and steward this temporary inheritance as it passes from us to future generations. We seek through this work to provide a healthy, life-giving legacy. Voting can be a way to honor our commitments, our pledges to care for creation, and offer greater protection for our neighbors. Voting can enable laws and policies that reduce suffering, alleviate the afflicted, especially in this uncertain time. when we face intensifying weather, statewide drought, and flood in various places. Every religious community on the planet keeps some form of compassionate action, care for each other, gentleness, or other way to help others to lift from suffering to greater well-being and resilience. The call to care for the suffering undergirds the priority to address environmental justice through work like the policies we hope to protect this year. By voting consistently and paying attention to the who's and the what's of climate justice on the ballot, each of us can honor the earth and give a greener, more healthy world to the children of this earth. The Climate Commitment Act is our Washington landmark law to reduce harmful pollution over time through a cap and invest program, which is data-informed, incremental, and provides investments across the state for clean energy transition. It also gives the bill for these changes to the most polluting industries in the state, speaking the language of cost to those who may have seen only the fiscal bottom line without attention to the triple bottom line of economic, environmental, and social well-being. The CCA gives the legislature full ability to prioritize environmental justice through addressing risks in overburdened communities, building climate resiliency, and developing cleaner transportation and promoting health. Already among monies allocated, 43% is directed to serve communities overburdened with pollution, and 7.3% are focused on tribal interests. We have a short video from the Department of Ecology explaining
We've
this.
known climate change is happening and causing harm to our state and our planet. But the latest research suggests it might be happening even faster than scientists predicted. The cause is fossil fuels. The answer is to reduce fossil fuels. We use a lot of fossil fuel to power our vehicles, schools, homes, and offices. Burning fossil fuels causes climate change and creates pollution that makes people sick. That's why Washington is taking action to reduce climate pollution. These actions include the Clean Energy Transformation Act, which requires 100% clean energy by 2045, a nation-leading clean buildings policy, clean transportation policies to promote clean fuels and zero-emission vehicles, and a landmark policy known as the Climate Commitment Act. The Climate Commitment Act is working to drive down emissions from the biggest polluters, make them pay their fair share, help reduce pollution, and protect our families and communities. The CCA covers 75% of statewide emissions. The policy requires the state's biggest polluters to participate in the CCA's Cap and Invest program. They can reduce how much they pollute by changing the way they operate, or they can purchase pollution allowances. Over time, as the cap on pollution comes down, fewer allowances are available for purchase. The revenue from the pollution allowances is being reinvested in projects and programs that help families, businesses, and local governments switch from fossil fuels to cleaner energy, and to help Washington communities deal with the effects of climate change. Examples include quiet and clean electric school buses for our children, thousands more EV charging stations, free transit for all young people, safer sidewalks and trails for people to walk and bike, cost-saving weatherization, and more. The CCA will benefit everyone in Washington state. It will reduce pollution, protect our communities from climate impacts, and create jobs in the clean energy economy. The policy puts a special emphasis on ensuring benefits for vulnerable communities that have to shoulder the greatest burden, including seniors, tribes, families, and neighborhoods with lower incomes or people with challenging health conditions. We can build a clean energy future for Washington state. It's time to act.
Thank you. So that's a little bit about CCA from the Department of Ecology, just to have another perspective on how to explain it. And in terms of the history, Washington State has a proud over 50-year legacy of environmental leadership nationwide, starting the Department of Ecology as the first U.S. environmental agency in any state and before the Environmental Protection Agency at a national level. It took over a decade of environmental organizing more recently to achieve the CCA. As some of you may remember, ballot initiative 1631 in 2018, though it did not pass, was the largest ballot initiative coalition in state history. And our organization was certainly doing a lot to support ballot initiative 1631 some years ago. The 2021 legislative session was a watershed year, passing both the CCA and the HEAL Act, or Healthy Environment for All Act, which provided a mandate to address environmental justice priorities. What a blessing and clear result of the hard work and vision of people like you here today. As the HEAL Act continues to be implemented, it provides focus and resources to overburdened communities of color, economically disadvantaged communities, and indigenous communities. The CCA has only been implemented since only last year, 2023, when the capped energy limits auction raised $1.8 billion. These monies are allocated to community and environmental programs across the state. By now, over $2 billion has been raised, all focused through the hard work of our legislators toward the crucial work ahead to meet our responsibilities, to prevent harm to vulnerable communities now and into the future. But unfortunately, one millionaire is funding a repeal of the CCA through Initiative 2117. There is a clear choice between the cost of inaction versus the cost of action on climate. If we invest as soon as we can, then we will contribute to lessening suffering now and in the future. It is that simple. Every faith calls us to reduce suffering among people, and many also invite us to consider the creaturely companions with whom we share our lives. How can we bring the seeds of compassion, the seeds of justice, the seeds of well-being through our votes? Now, I'd like to tell you a few things about the ballot initiative 2117. It would not only remove our landmark climate law, uncapping pollution limits, and providing no plan to reduce climate harms and injustices. It cuts needed investments in the most important things we depend on, our air, water, forests, farmland, jobs, and ways to get from place to place. It reverses decades of work that went into this CCA and prevents any future opportunity for cap and invest laws to be considered in Washington. It is also pretty concerning how they disregarded the truth when gathering voter signatures. On the other hand, right now, already designated, we have billions of dollars promised for school modernization through monies raised by the CCA, school modernization, public transit, salmon recovery, clean energy, electric vehicle infrastructure, plus grants for renters to benefit from home energy efficiency, in addition to homeowners who've had a variety of benefits for a long time. This is a crucial next step in enabling energy, clean energy futures. Millions of dollars, in addition to those billions on the last slide, millions of dollars are available for community grants, public building retrofits, solar, community and tribal pollution prevention, upgrades, industry innovation, so grants to help the industries that are polluting find their way to not polluting as much and eliminating pollution. Providing school indoor air quality and efficiency through heat pumps, community solar resilience hubs, and active transportation. Next slide. So every county benefits from these investments, from safer paths to walk, bike, and roll, air quality and heating for schools and homes, robust clean energy implementation, grants for tribes and overburdened communities, again, monitoring air quality, and free transit for youth across the state. These benefits are significant for every county across the state. And now there's another video, this one prepared by the No on 2117 campaign, for us to understand better what is at risk and what benefits from the CCA we'd like to protect. Okay.
Across Washington, people are coming together to defeat Initiative 2117 because it threatens our air, land, and water. And 2117 would gut investments in transportation and jobs in our clean energy future. Initiative 2117 costs us all.
A lot of people depend on transit, and Initiative 2117 would mean hundreds of millions for transportation improvement would be lost.
Clean energy is growing in Washington because we've made good policy decisions.
Investments in clean energy are creating jobs in Washington right now.
The big key to being sustainable and lasting as a farmer is taking care of your land. I've been excited to see the investment in agriculture and sustainability from the state of Washington the last few years. 2117 would actually hurt all of agriculture. Initiative 2117 simply doesn't make any sense, and it would actually cost all of us money.
The Suquamish people see the effects of climate change every day. We also want to make sure that we protect and preserve what we have now. Initiative 2117 is threatening to our livelihoods, threatening to our culture.
But 2117 doesn't just cost us financially, it could cost us our future.
The climate crisis is supercharging wildfires, and we're seeing it summer after summer. We know we're going to face more fires.
There are a lot of children that struggle with asthma. I'm conscious and thinking about Sam's breathing on clean air quality days. I'm terrified on days when it's smoky.
If 2117 passes, our response to wildfires will be less effective. We just can't afford this right now.
And who's behind Initiative 2117?
2117 is being pushed by one wealthy individual.
We've made a lot of progress in Washington with clean energy, and now one rich guy wants to take it all away.
A billionaire taking away transportation services for millions of people that need them is completely out of touch.
Passing 2117 would turn back the progress we've already made on wildfire resilience.
We could lose these jobs.
2117 will cost us clean air and clean water and healthy land and soil.
Initiative 2117 would cost us all too much.
More traffic, fewer choices, that's going to cost us all.
If you want a cleaner and more prosperous Washington, you should vote no on 2117.
To protect our air, land, and water. To protect our investments in the future. Vote no on 2117. We can't afford it.
So that's another way of explaining no on 2117 through the campaign itself. So I want to give us a chance, both online on Zoom and in the room here, to talk a bit about the stories in the video and how they may interconnect or resonate with your experience or things that matter for your community. Let's take a moment to turn to someone nearby, and online, if you could type into the chat, how do these stories intersect with your own? We'll just take a few minutes, maybe 2 to 3 people, as you wish. Go ahead. there, just checking in. Do you want another minute or so? Yeah? Okay. We'll wrap up in another minute and continue. So we certainly do have so much that we could discuss on these issues, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be together today. And we do have some time afterwards as well for coffee and conversation. So I hope these conversations continue at that time. So, let's see, next slide. If you have any questions, you are welcome to write them on the index cards that Reverend Laura is bringing around right now. And when you're done, if you do have a question, make sure that you get that index card back to Laura. Okay, so when people of faith and conscience vote no on 2117, we affirm the dignity and inherent value of our precious world, our sacred connections in the living world, and our capacity to offer accountability for furthering environmental justice for communities across Washington. We can be a blessing in our votes and in our work with each other to share in this phenomenal community of over 100 organizations representing environmental, business groups, tribal nations, labor unions, and other community organizations across the state. What a sacred opportunity and call for each of us to bring our stories to this work. And now I'll welcome AC to continue.
Jeff, I probably shouldn't have touched that. Oh my goodness, the work that we do with one another is so important. And I think, again, we talked at the very beginning that one of the highlights of Earth Ministry Washington IPL is that we do this work in connection with folks. And you've seen, as Sarah mentioned, that this coalition on No on 2117 is a combination across trade and labor, across communities, across people, environmentalists, scientists, people of faith, people of conscience. And so one of the things that we feel is really important as in any of the advocacy work we do is grounding ourselves in our understanding of why we do this work. And your why is probably different than my why. In just a minute, in just a little bit, I'm gonna have Jeff share with you a video that I made for our Cast Your Vote Washington campaign, because for us, this time together is not just, the campaign is not simply about saying no to 2117, it's about saying yes to a lot of things. Like, we wanna say yes to the progress and goals that we have. We wanna say yes to affirming the dignity of creation. We want to say yes to, we talk about like budgets being moral stories, and we want to say yes to budgets that fund green energy transitions, clean energy transitions. We want to say yes to a lot of things in addition to the no on 2117. So in just a second, just a minute, I told you a minute, it might be more than that. But in a little bit, I'm gonna share with you a video about part of my why. But for a minute, I want you to think, and Jeff, if you could advance the slide, that would be great. about this nourishing our growth. This piece around advocacy work is hard. I wonder how many of you on Zoom, or those of you who are here in the room, how long have you been doing advocacy work? You can shout out it up. What was I supposed to say? So 10, 20, 30? More? Okay, 30. Others. How long have you been doing this? 5? Come on, Lon. I know you were like, okay, you're not giving me a number, you're just giving me a yes, I've been doing this for a while. That's okay. Others. Too long. Oh my goodness. I don't even know. You know what? You might have told me your name at one point in time and I don't remember it, but Connie? Connie, my goodness, that is an amazing answer. Too long. The truth about this work that we do with one another is it's not quick. It's not quick because so much of this work, you all probably start, as a number of you maybe started before others of us came into this existence. Maybe you've been doing it for a while. Maybe you saw your parents doing it, or your grandparents doing it, or people within your own churches growing up, or your own sacred traditions. So connecting to your why is really important, because that not only helps you when you're speaking to other people, but it helps to nourish your soul. That language may not fit for you, so whatever language does fit for you. It might be spirit, it might be body, it might be mind. Yes. Oh, amazing input online. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we had one person 43 years, one person 30 plus, one person 37.
My goodness, Zoom participants, you have been doing this a long time too. And even, I think I'm probably in about 10 to 15 years of doing this. So even that feels like a long time to be doing this. And when we begin to, if you've just started, some of this work can be so daunting and overwhelming that it feels exhausting. Because you're saying, it's too long, Connie. We've been doing it. Why haven't things changed? We've been doing this for how long now? And we're back at this point again? Why? So, part of the way in which we encourage ourselves and nurture our souls and our spirits in this work is to remember our whys and to ground ourselves, whether that be through planting physically things, doing things in the earth, or whether it be through connecting to your spirit and resting and renewing. We have to know our whys and know our stories. So as people of faith and conscience, we bring our stories into this work. And part of our stories are this 3-part thing. Knowing who we are. So I want you to take just a minute and think about, who are you? You don't have to share with me if you don't want to. I would love to hear your story afterwards. Or for those on Zoom, who are you? Are you a teacher? And some of these are jobs, but some of these are not. So are you a teacher? Are you a compassionate person? Are you a lover of trees, a dendrophile? I learned that word yesterday. Dendrophile. Well, I may not be using it correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong, but are you a lover of the earth? Who are you? Who are you connected to? That's the second part. Who are you connected to? For a lot of Sacred Earth Matters, I imagine it's the group here at UCUCC. For Zoom, we've seen a lot of people of faith and conscience on Zoom. Who are you connected to? Maybe it's another faith community. Maybe it is a gardening club. Who are you and who are you connected to? And the last part of our story is what do you want? What vision do you have for the world? Because these 3 pieces are important when we not only tell our stories to others, but when we tell our stories to policymakers, but also in this work of when we're doing against a specific initiative, it's a lot of challenge around helping, not only telling your story, but hearing other people's stories as well. So I'm going to share with you my story, a little bit of my story. Perfect. Thanks, Jeff. So I wanted to share with you one of my favorite places, which is Owen Beach. For those of you who may not be familiar, Owen Beach is in Tacoma, and it just happened to be one of the first places I learned about, and one of the first places that felt like home after I moved to Tacoma a couple years ago. Even after a couple of years, this place continues to be one of the places I retreat to when my heart feels heavy and my mind feels full. It continues to be a place of rest and respite for me. You know, the Puget Sound is a magical and beautiful place. As I'm filming today, I happened to look up and I could see the outline of the mountain, and she is gorgeous. Hey, mountain! Mountain is out today. She's gorgeous. And I can hear the way in which the waves meet the shore. I can hear the birds. I feel the breeze. It really is a beautiful place. And even with all the beauty, I know that just below the outline of the mountain is a liquefied natural gas plant that was put on Puyallup Indian Reservation land without their permission. Just below the water, I know that there are toxins, and I know there's trash. And while I can't see them, I know swirling around me there are polluting particles pouring out from industries that are poorly regulated and in higher concentrations just miles from where I am in South Tacoma, where the evidence of redlining continues as the life expectancy of these frontline communities is drastically different than the communities that live around Owen Beach. This spring, Earth Ministry, Washington Interfaith Power and Light will launch our Cast Your Vote Washington campaign with the goal to educate and mobilize people to vote to protect the beauty of the Northwest, to create a legacy of life for the non-human world and a legacy of life for those who will come after us. Vote to reduce the harmful impacts of transportation, of industry, and convenience. A vote to choose life and beauty and protection of this sacred, magical place. You see, this is what Cast Your Vote Washington is really about. Actively choosing how we will work, live, play, and pray, and be in relationship with the land and those who live in these places with us. And so as we prepare for our campaign launch, as we get ready to share information and resources, we ask you to consider, how will you cast your vote? How will you cast your vote to care for this earth? How will you cast your vote to care for your neighbor? How will you cast your vote to care for the world around you so that we can create a just and sustainable world for all? Thank you. I'm wondering if there are those who are gathered either on Zoom or today in person who want to share some of your whys of why doing this work is important to you. So, Jeff's got this turned on. Test 1, 2, perfect, thank you.
My name is Reverend Megan Pritchard. I'm the pastor at Prospect United Church of Christ and also a member here at University. I know that we need to turn things around on climate. We need to throw every possible solution at the problem of climate change and trying to fund a transition away from fossil fuels. I feel like I'm in a place of privilege where I have land, I have some money that I could put solar panels on my house and all that sort of thing, and drive an electric car and all that, and I can do that. But I know that a lot of people cannot do that. And so I'm grateful to have the Climate Commitment Act that provides funding to help groups make that transition off of fossil fuel. One of my concerns in advocating for people to vote for this is that I believe that it impacts our gas prices, right? When we put gas in our car. When we've got people who cannot afford to live in Seattle, who work in Seattle and cannot afford to live here, and they live farther out, like say in Auburn or something, and maybe they work hours where transit doesn't run, would they have to drive their cars? This feels like a regressive, the Climate Commitment Act, taxing them on gas feels regressive, that we're generating income for this transition off of people who can't actually afford to make the transition themselves. So if people bring up that question, that concern, how is this just when we're doing it on the backs of people who really can't afford not to drive their gas cars? What do I say? That's my question.
That's a great question, and we're gonna, Sarah is gonna talk a little bit about that in just a minute, because that is a question that we've heard a lot. Also, it's one of the ways in which signatures were really gathered, was by saying, you wanna lower your gas prices, sign this petition. So it is a piece of this conversation. Thank you very much. Are there others who would wanna share your why? Maybe not necessarily the why about the Climate Commitment Act or about voting, but like why is this work important to you? And does Zoom have a couple things?
Yeah, we have someone say this. Okay. Jeff Berner says, I am the grandfather of a 3-year-old that I want to take hiking and fishing and swimming and kayaking. And Jessica Sand says, I am a nature lover, green team leader, Qigong student, RE teacher, and inspired by the beauty, resilience, and determination of the people in my community. And Catherine Rua says, I am an art maker, and I want those who have little access to the beauty of outdoor experiences and the beauty of the natural world to have greater, easier access to this beauty. And I want us all to have a cleaner air to breathe, no matter where they are.
Thank you very much. We'll do one more opportunity for those gathered here in the room. Anyone else want to share part of your why? Doesn't have to be your whole why. Yes, Mary Ellen.
I'm the product of a forester and a nurse. And I grew up in a state forest in Wisconsin. And the first 6 years of my life, I got to go outside every day and run around in the woods and do whatever I wanted to do. Had a dog too. And I think it's in my DNA. I can't not do something outside. And I can't not be active in doing the work of justice as well as caring for our beautiful, beautiful creation.
Thank you very much. So as you think about your why, maybe you are one of those people who needs a little bit of time to think, a little space to process. And as you think about your why, then I'd invite you to think about, so what are you going to do? Action or reflection, then action. What are you going to do about your why? So you love the earth. You want to care for it. What are some of the ways that you can care for it in this coming year? And you're doing probably a lot of things already. The one piece about Cast Your Vote Washington is we're encouraging people to think about the ways in which their love for the earth, their care for one another, their hope for a legacy for their children and grandchildren, for the generations to come, whether that be human or non-human, how that inspires them to get out and vote. But there are lots of other ways in addition. So what are you going to do with your why? As we move into kind of wrapping up framework of this, want to say that we will be offering, and Sarah will talk a little bit more about this later, but as we move throughout this Cast Your Vote Washington campaign, we will be we'll be starting to release some resources that will connect these issues, what we're talking about, to opportunities within your own sacred traditions, like bulletin inserts, things that you can talk about in worship, in sacred spaces, wherever that looks like for you. Because we know that for a lot of us, the why is connected to something outside of ourselves, whether it be a faith, a connection to the universe, a connection to the divine, the spirit, the life. So we want to help to be able to provide those resources for you as you go. And this particular prompt here, my value for maybe the trees, my value for nature, my value for clean air, clean water, my value of humanity calls me to do this work. And because of that, I will vote. I will take action on my values and on my why. So I think, Jeff, if you could, perfect. So one of the things that you might notice on the tagline of our Cast Your Vote Washington campaign is, it says at the very bottom, and again, you will have access to bigger images of this, larger images, but it says, if votes were trees, let us plant a forest. So let us plant a forest together. Let us create a community together that does this, because we know we can't do this alone. And we've got lots of different ways to sign on to share with your community. Reminders that you don't have to be an expert. These particular questions about gas prices, we are learning with you. We happen to be in really good coalition spaces that are meeting on a weekly basis with updated information. So we'll be sharing that information, those resources with you. You can sign on and connect and know that your why, your story is just as important in sharing and helps to encourage others to share their story. So whether your doing is talking to someone else, signing a pledge, sharing this information with your loved ones, I just, again, encourage you to think through that. So I think this is the point that I hand it over to Sarah. Thanks, Jen.
So I have a few questions that people have posed that I'd like to combine into a bit of an answer here. I'd also like to let you know that you, as attendees today, get early access to our toolkit. And maybe every month or every twice a month, maybe even more often, I'll be adding tools to our toolkit that will be shared with you to share with your communities as well. So a few people asked about using the No on 2117 video. It is available to you, and I will be sharing out a way for you to sign up as a faith community so we can see who's using these resources and make sure that that gets counted. To provide comments to the No on 2117 campaign, you're welcome to contact me or our siblings at FAN if you prefer, but I can take that on myself since I'm answering the question. And how to communicate about this beyond your own congregational community. There will be some resources in the toolkit to talk about that. And if you have suggestions or ideas, you're always welcome to contact me. So the more sort of challenging question that I think many of us have heard, and certainly if you've seen one of the petitions for the Initiative 2117, it may be very confusing for people to say, stop the gas tax, because it's not a gas tax. So last year, as the CCA was being implemented, it was the first year that these monies were being collected from auctions of carbon credits across the state of Washington. The biggest polluters were the only folks paying for these sorts of things because it costs a lot to go through this process. So while they were making record profits, they were also easing up the price of gas, right? So we were experiencing hardships, as you're saying, a regressive level of hardship. Thank you, Reverend Megan, for pointing that out. Not because of a gas tax, but because of the polluting companies prioritizing their profits over taking their responsibility and accountability for this transition that we all need to have a more livable world and reduce suffering in the long term. One of the things that certainly gets my goat as an advocacy person and someone who thinks about the complexities of these issues is when vulnerable people are used as a sort of reason to continue something that is harmful to vulnerable people. So that's one thing that kind of hits my heart. Like, vulnerable people, yes, having prices of gas go up is, and I can say from experience, it's not easy, right? It's not easy for any of us, but certainly people who have a very limited amount of money to spend to have those prices go up, it's painful. But to pose this as a gas tax and to say that these people are suffering because of the CCA, that's a misnomer. It's a misnomer. These profiting companies are passing along their own costs in a very, very large budget with a great deal of profit in that budget. They're passing along things that they should be taking responsibility for. And yes, I wonder about legislation to keep that accountability. I don't have answers for how to do that, but I would like to see those answers. And that is also something that gets brought up in conversations about the CCA, rather than the sort of scorch and burn, take it out, prevent anything like it to ever exist. Why don't we improve upon it? Like, make it so that it doesn't feel like a gas tax. What would that look like? What kind of improvements can we make so that there is a different way of going about regulating the industry that's passing along those costs? Okay. One of the things that I really loved about what AC was talking about was how many years of advocacy are in this room. And I'd like to just take a minute and write down how many people have been at this for 50 years? More than 50 years? 60 years. Okay, 60 years, 50 years. The people with more than 60 years, you can put your hands down. I'm just gonna get the decades and I'm gonna count and share out how many years of advocacy are in this room. It may not be a huge full group, but the years of advocacy in this room matter. So, and on Zoom, yes, I got a few numbers from Zoom. If you haven't already chimed in, please do, and we'll count all of the years of advocacy that we represent and the inspiration that we can share from that kind of number. I know for myself, I was like, oh my gosh, I kind of didn't realize it was over 30 years just for little old me, right? So, okay, how many people have done more than 50 years of advocacy? More than 40 years? How about more than 30 years? Great. More than 20 years. More than 10 years. Awesome. Thank you. More than 5 years? Are we all counted now? If you haven't been counted, please talk to me afterwards. All right. So we have in our toolkit, we have what you may have already seen and already signed, our pledge, No on 2117. We have a flyer to share out to our communities. We have the video that you saw today, including a version in English with English subtitles and a version in English with Spanish subtitles. And we have a link to understand the breadth of this coalition, how many organizations are signed on, and it's growing every day. And other things, as AC mentioned, and as I said, we'll have more and more options and opportunities. And if there are things that you wish you could see, like several of you asked for a few things, and I will keep that in mind. All right. And one thing that you can do when you receive that toolkit is just share it with 3 people. Share something from today with 3 people, right? We can create numbers through the sharing that we do. And coming soon in our toolkit, you'll see a faith leader letter sign on. So we're going to circulate that later in the year, as well as a story video invitation. As we talked about our stories and what brings us to this work today, we'll have an opportunity to share those if you're interested with more in our community. So, another thing to note is that we are doing this work as a nonpartisan organization, and I know that faith communities, congregations also work in this special space of advocacy that is a 501c3 space usually. And so we'll keep that in mind as we're sharing out these resources on how we can support policies that make a difference and great. Anything else before we are sending off and having some time to gather more informally? All right. And just to give the last note, this cedar tree has been in my care for the past several years. It's something that I created an assignment when I moved up here to Washington for my students at Pacific Lutheran University to engage with a living plant during their first year at school. And some of them kept theirs and some of them didn't. And so I've been harboring some cedars, and I'm very grateful to honor the life of this real plant by sharing it with the Sacred Earth Matters group today, because they've been honoring life in so many ways through the years, and it really is a blessing and a privilege to be able to work with you all. Thank you.
I want to close us with a prayer by John Philip Newell. The world is alive with your goodness, O God. It grows green from the ground and ripens into the roundness of fruit. Its taste and its touch enliven my body and stir my soul. Generously given, profusely displayed, your graces of goodness pour forth from the earth. As I have received, so free me to give. As I have been granted, so may I go forth to protect your gifts. Amen.
What a gift to be here. Thank you for making time and space to be together today. We have coffee and conversation for those of you in the room. If you're here on Zoom, thank you for finding a way to be present and for offering what you can to our virtual space. All of you will receive a message from me in the next few days, and you're very welcome, if you aren't already signed up, to our Cast Your Vote Washington campaign to go ahead and do that today so that you receive what we've created for you. All right, thank you for being here, and blessings on your day.